What feels like confidence is actually a meticulously crafted illusion, a performance. Most men spend their lives watching the stage, seeing the applause, and believing the show, but you're about to be led behind the curtain. Take a slow breath. Quiet the noise in your mind. Now, picture someone you know, someone who, on the surface, seems to have it all together. Maybe they're the loudest person in the room, the one who always has to one-up a story. Or perhaps they're the quiet one, the one who always seems a little too perfect, a little too poised. You see their actions, you hear their words, and you accept them as fact. You think they're strong, you think they're unshakable. But what if everything you see is a lie, a brilliant deception designed not to fool you, but to protect themselves from you discovering the one thing they are terrified of you seeing, the secret they can't even admit to themselves? They never told you that the fear of being exposed, of being seen as weak or flawed, is one of the most powerful motivators a man will ever feel. It's the silent conductor orchestrating their every attempt at control. Every boast, every deflection, every quiet withdrawal, it's not a sign of strength or personality. It's a wound, a deep, psychological void they're desperately trying to fill, trying to hide. Welcome. Tonight, we're stepping beyond the masks people wear, beyond what you've been told about control, confidence, and the true nature of men. If you've ever felt the pull to understand what truly drives people, not what they say, but what they secretly fear, then stay with me. This is for you. Like this video, and subscribe if you're ready to see the dark truth most men never face. Take a slow breath, let's go deeper. The quietest room in the world is the one behind your own eyes. It's where the shadows live, where you keep the things you don't want anyone to see, especially yourself. We all have a version of that room, a place we go to when a certain feeling, a certain memory, rises to the surface. It's the origin point of every insecurity you've ever felt. You've probably felt it, that sudden, hollow feeling when someone's words hit a little too close to home. A passing comment about your ambition, your appearance, your strength. It's a fleeting moment, a ghost of a feeling you immediately push away. You tell yourself it's nothing, that you don't care, the flickering light of a memory you don't want to examine. But that's not just a passing comment, that's a key turning in a lock you didn't even know was there. This is the truth most men ignore, and insecurity isn't a flaw you inherited, it's a message you received. A deep-seated belief planted in your mind by someone you trusted, a parent, a teacher, a past lover. They saw a flicker of something in you, a need, a desire, a vulnerability, and they gave it a name, often without even realizing what they were doing. They made you feel small, and in that moment, a part of you retreated into the shadows. The real tragedy is not that this message was sent, it's that you accepted it as a fundamental truth. You built your life, your defenses, your entire identity around protecting that wound. Every time you overcompensate with a boast, every time you lash out in anger, every time you need validation from a stranger, you are acting out a script that someone else wrote for you. Every success, every failure, is a desperate attempt to prove that old message wrong, to silence that quiet, whispering voice in the dark. Most men don't realize they are not fighting their own battles, they are still fighting ghosts from their past. The insecurity isn't the problem, it's the quiet voice, the unseen hand, that's been pulling your strings all along. But that's only the surface. The real danger hides deeper. The real danger isn't the wound itself. It's what grows in the darkness around it. It's the part of you they told you to kill, the part you disowned, the things that made you feel small. You buried them, but they never left. You gave them a name, your shadow. Every man has one. It is not some monster in the dark, but a reflection of every insecurity, every fear, every forbidden desire you have ever suppressed. To hide it, you built a persona, a perfect, strong, unshakable version of yourself you present to the world. But the shadow is always there, pulling on your strings. Most men don't realize that their greatest strengths are often just the elaborate defenses they built to keep the shadow contained. Consider the man who is pathologically charming, the one who effortlessly commands attention and affection. You see confidence, you see magnetism. But what if that endless need for external validation is just the shadow's insatiable hunger? A deep, primal fear of being forgotten, of being worthless, or the man who needs to be in control, who manipulates and dominates every social interaction. You see power, you see ambition. But the truth is that desire for control is born from a profound, terrifying feeling of powerlessness. He is simply trying to silence the whispering voice in his shadow that tells him he is weak. What feels like freedom to be who you want is actually a silent master, keeping you in a meticulously crafted prison. The very thing you do to feel powerful is the clearest signal of your insecurity. Every time you try to dominate a conversation, every time you manipulate a situation, you are not proving your worth. You're simply feeding the shadow. You're giving it more power. You are in a war against yourself, and you are losing because you don't even know you're fighting. But what if the only way to win is to stop fighting? What if the key to your freedom is not to defeat the shadow, but to finally turn around and face it? You're standing at a crossroads. The road you've always taken is paved with a comfortable lie, the pretense that you are whole, that you are without fault. The other road is a dark path, unlit and unsettling. It's a path of radical honesty. And the first step is the hardest because it feels like a defeat. It feels like surrender. Most men don't realize that the power of an insecurity is not in its existence, but in your denial of it. The moment you push a fear into the dark, it doesn't disappear, it simply grows stronger, feeding on your shame and secrecy. This is the first crack in the wall of your control, the moment you put your hand on the doorknob. It's a quiet moment, a flash of pure, unedited truth. Picture it, you see an old friend find a success you craved, a cold spike of envy, of inadequacy shoots through you. Your first impulse is a well-worn path. You make an excuse, you rationalize, you tell yourself you're happy for them, while a part of you festers. That is the lie. The moment of radical honesty is when you silence that impulse and simply say to yourself, without judgment, without narrative, I am jealous. That moment of quiet, unsettling acceptance is everything. The heartbeat in your chest quickens, the air feels thin, and a profound dread washes over you. You expect the room to crack, the floor to fall out from under you, but nothing happens. By simply naming the shadow, by looking at it for what it is, you neutralize its power. The jealousy doesn't disappear, but it loses its grip on you. It becomes an object you are observing, not a master you are obeying. This isn't about being positive, it's about being precise. You are disarming a bomb not by fighting it, but by calmly identifying its components. But seeing the shadow is one thing, learning to speak its language. That's where the real power lies. The language of the shadow is not in words, it whispers. And every one of your insecurities, every jealousy, every desperate need for validation is an echo, a plea. It's a primal, nonverbal message from that wounded part of you, a forgotten memory of a need that was never met. The fear you are running from is not a monster, it is a child crying out in the dark. Most men spend their lives chasing shadows, trying to prove their worth to people who don't matter, simply because a part of them is still desperately trying to prove their worth to a ghost from their past. The man who needs to be the center of attention isn't arrogant. He's terrified of being invisible. His shadow is whispering, I need to feel seen. I am afraid of being forgotten. The man who controls every detail isn't powerful. He's afraid of chaos. His shadow whispers, I need to feel safe. I am afraid of being helpless. This is the key. The desire you fight hardest is the one that owns you. But by learning to listen to the whisper, by learning to decode the language of the shadow, you take back control. When you feel the familiar ache of an insecurity, you don't push it away or act on it, you pause. You turn inward and you ask, what is this really about? You trace the feeling back to its root. It's not a moment of weakness, it's a quiet moment of profound power. You are no longer reacting to a monster. You are calmly listening to a part of yourself that has been screaming for help for a very long time. You are giving that part the acknowledgement it was always denied. You are finally seeing the very thing you were told to kill. You've learned to listen to the shadow. But what happens when you start to answer it on your own terms? Answering the shadow is not about silencing it. It is about speaking its language, but with a new voice, your voice. For decades, you've been letting it scream for attention, and you've responded by demanding that same attention from everyone else, a desperate, clumsy attempt to fulfill its needs with borrowed light. But now you know better. You know the whisper, you know the need. This is the moment you begin to answer it directly, from within. Let's go back to that old fear, that familiar need. Perhaps it's the urge to dominate a conversation, to assert your expertise. The shadow whispers, I am afraid of being overlooked. I need to feel smart. The old you would have argued, would have fought to be right, feeding that insecurity with a hollow victory. The new you pauses, you acknowledge the whisper. You say to yourself silently, I hear you, my intelligence is not dependent on this man's opinion. I know my own worth. The world doesn't shift. The people around you might not notice, but inside, something profound has happened. You've met the need. You've given yourself the validation you were so desperately seeking from the outside. That is the quiet strength of a man who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. He simply knows. You are no longer reacting like a puppet, with your strings of insecurity pulled by every passing comment. You are the puppeteer, calmly observing the game. This is the negotiation. The shadow is not a monster to be slain, but a wounded part of you that needs care. You are not killing it, you are integrating it. You are saying, I see you, I acknowledge your pain. And I will answer your needs, but on my own terms, with my own strength. This feels unsettling at first. It feels like you've lost a weapon, but you haven't. You've simply traded a loud, brittle blade for a quiet, unbreakable shield. But what does it mean to wield this new kind of quiet power, and how do you use it without becoming what you once were? Wielding this quiet power is not about becoming a conqueror, it is about becoming an observer. The moment you stopped fighting your own shadow, a profound shift occurred, your vision cleared. For the first time, you can see the world for what it truly is, a stage full of men fighting their own shadows, desperately trying to hide the things they can't admit to themselves. They never told you that the key to analyzing people isn't about reading their body language or decoding their words. It's about recognizing the quiet echoes of your own past insecurities in their every action. You see a man who is overly aggressive in a business meeting. The old you might have seen a threat. The new you sees his shadow, a primal fear of being weak, of being irrelevant, screaming for validation. You see the woman who constantly seeks approval from her friends. The old you might have seen a social butterfly. The new you sees her shadow, a deep-seated loneliness, a terror of being abandoned. This new clarity can be a lonely and unsettling thing. You now see the invisible strings that pull people. You see their wounds and their defenses, their fears and their hidden desires, all laid bare. The world becomes a silent landscape, and you are one of the few who can truly read the map. You are no longer a participant in their games of ego and power. You are a quiet, detached observer. This gives you an immense, almost unfair advantage. You are no longer reacting to what people say. You are responding to what they secretly feel. You are no longer threatened by their performance. You are simply aware of it. The power they project is just a mirror reflecting their deepest insecurity, and you've already seen that part of yourself. You are immune to the very things that pull most men into endless cycles of competition and conflict. You've stopped being a puppet. Now you can see the strings on everyone else, but with that power comes a choice. What will you do with it? You now possess a rare and unsettling gift, the ability to see the invisible strings. You see the man who boasts about his wealth, and you know he fears poverty. You see the woman who criticizes everyone, and you know she fears her own inadequacy. This clarity is a profound power, a quiet hum beneath the surface of every interaction. But with this power comes a profound choice, one most men never even realize they have. What feels like power, like an opportunity to dominate, is actually the last trap. Most men, upon gaining such insight, would immediately turn it outwards, using it to exploit weaknesses, to manipulate, to gain an advantage. They would see others' insecurities as leverage, as weapons to be deployed in the endless game of status and control. They would become the very thing they once feared, a puppet master, pulling the strings of others, only to find themselves still bound by their own need for external validation. This path, though tempting, leads only back to the prison you just escaped. It's a profound deception, designed to keep you trapped in a loop of seeking more, never truly satisfied. They never told you that true power isn't about controlling others. It's about being utterly uncontrollable yourself. When you understand someone's deepest insecurity, you hold their most vulnerable secret. To exploit it is to prove you are still operating from your own place of insecurity, still needing to prove something. To simply know it and act from a place of quiet understanding is to transcend the game entirely. Imagine a chessboard. Most players focus on their next move, their opponent's immediate threat. But you, with this new vision, see the entire board, the long game, the hidden motivations behind every piece's movement. You see not just the pawn, but the king it protects and the queen it fears. You don't need to shout, to boast, to manipulate. You simply move with a quiet, unsettling precision because you understand the underlying forces at play. This is the uneasy acceptance, the realization that the game is not about winning against others, but about mastering yourself. When you are truly free from your own hidden fears, the need to exploit others vanishes. You become a force that cannot be swayed by their projections, their insecurities, or their attempts to pull your strings. You are the immovable object in a world of constant motion. But how do you truly influence without manipulation? How do you lead without controlling? To influence without manipulation, you must become the calm center, a point of stillness in a world of chaos. This is not about being passive. It is about becoming so secure in yourself that you are no longer moved by the insecure noise of others. When you have mastered your own shadow, the shadows of others lose their power over you. They can no longer pull your strings. They never told you that the most powerful thing you can do in a heated argument is to say nothing at all, not out of fear, but out of a profound stillness. When someone hurls their insecurities at you, their criticism, their aggression, their desperate need to be right, the old you would have risen to the bait. You would have fought their fire with your own, proving only that you were still playing their game. The new you is a still lake, their storm rages on the surface, but it cannot touch the depths. This non-reaction is the ultimate form of influence. When you refuse to be drawn into their drama, you force them to confront their own behavior. You become an immovable object in a world of constant motion, and people, without realizing why, will gravitate towards that stillness. They are searching for a compass, and you, having found yours, become it. You are not leading them, not controlling them, not manipulating them. You are simply existing in a state they have forgotten how to reach. What most men don't realize is that true influence is not about changing people. It is about being so unchangeable yourself that others must change to be near you. You do not need to shout. You do not need to command. You simply need to be a quiet testament to a different way of being. This feels uncomfortable at first. It feels like a loss of control, but it's not. It is the purest form of control you will ever know, the control over your own response, over your own internal world. You have stopped being a puppet. You see the strings on everyone else. And now you know the greatest power is not in pulling their strings, but in allowing your own to hang loose. The final frontier is within, and it is quieter than you ever imagined. The final frontier is not in the minds of others. It's in the quiet space you now inhabit. This journey was never truly about analyzing them. It was a mirror held up to your own reflection, so you could finally see the subtle truths you have been running from your entire life. All of the insecurities you recognized in others, their desperate pleas for attention, their need for control, their subtle manipulations, were not a threat. They were a roadmap, a way for you to understand the wounds that you, too, have been carrying. You have spent your life trying to escape yourself, believing that strength meant being without fault, without fear, without shame. But the only way to true freedom was to turn around and walk directly into the silence. You have looked into the darkness of your own shadow and, instead of a monster, you found a child, a wounded part of you that simply needed to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. This is the quiet liberation. The profound stillness that comes when you stop chasing shadows, when you stop needing the approval of others because you have finally given it to yourself. When you walk into a room, you no longer scan for threats or opportunities. You simply exist, present and calm, a quiet flame that does not need to roar to prove its heat. The world is still full of noise, but you are no longer a part of the choir. You are the conductor, observing the entire orchestra with a quiet, knowing gaze. Tonight, when you face your reflection in the mirror, you'll see the man you were told to kill, the part of you that was small and afraid and insecure. But you'll also see the man who finally stopped running from it and instead chose to listen. You'll see that the true power was never in defeating that part of you, but in embracing it. You will see the entire honest truth, and it will be quieter than you ever imagined. The journey to analyze others has led you to a single, quiet truth. It was never about them. It was a mirror held up to your own reflection, so you could see the shadow you've been running from. You've faced the insecurities that once controlled you, and in doing so, you've become an immovable force in a world of endless motion. You no longer need to pretend, to perform, to compete. You simply exist, a quiet observer of the great, unwieldy dance of human insecurity. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning. This new clarity can be a heavy burden to carry alone. The world is full of men still running from their shadows, and your path now is to walk among them with a quiet confidence they cannot understand. If you found yourself nodding along with these truths, if a silent understanding whispered back at you, then you are one of the few who understands the hidden game. Join us. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue this journey into forbidden psychology. It's a path most men will never take. Welcome to the silence. The world is no longer as it seems. It is quieter, darker, and more profoundly true than you ever imagined.